All right. All right, thank you, Matt. All right, so I'm going to call this to order as we now have a legal board number, and I ask you to join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now we are at announcements, and I have several, one of which many of you probably already know, that this is Autism Acceptance Month. So perfect timing. Yeah. The other one is that on April the 12th is Chico Unified Choir Day, and 4 choirs, Marsh, Bidwell, PV, and Chico High, are all performing at the Center for the Arts. They're going to start at 9:30 and go to 12:15. Each school's choir is going to do a segment, and then they're going to come together for a combined presentation of a single song. Okay, there's our 4th board member. Yay. So are there any other announcements? Okay, Matt?
I just want to say thank you to my wife for being such a good support to me, because today is our 20th anniversary.
Oh,
and,
man.
I'm spending it here with you all, which is wonderful fun for me and fun for her too, I'm sure.
Well, may not be the wisest choice, but hey. Okay, all right. And now Tom's here, that's great, and here's Caitlin. Okay, so no one else has any other announcements? All right, thank you then. Okay, so we move to our agenda, and the first thing is on the consent agenda. Does anyone have, wants to pull anything from the consent agenda? Anyone? All right. Can I have a motion then?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. So if no one's going to pull anything from the consent agenda, then we will vote by name. So,
Robinson, aye.
Lando, aye.
Kaiser, aye.
Dolby, aye.
Tennis, aye.
All right, so that passes. Okay, thank you. All right, with that, we go to the board workshop topic, which I think most of you are here for. And so we are looking at our educational programs, budgets, and supporting inclusive classroom development. Diane Olson. Whoa. Is it on, John? Okay, now it is.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for having us here tonight to talk about inclusive special education and the budget surrounding special education. We have a large group of people here to talk about specific programs within the district. And so I'm going to hand most of this off over to my coordinator team, and so I'd like to introduce them all to you. First, I have Dana Feingold. Dana specialty area is curriculum, intervention, and development and implementation. I have right behind me Gina Payton. Gina's specialty area is behavior supports, PD, and training in behavior. And then next to Gina is Damie Trowbridge. Damie's specialty area is social emotional learning, education-related mental health services, Alt-Ed, all of those areas of emotional supports. And then last on my right is Joanna Meng. Joanna's specialty area is professional development and also working with the elementary counselors. And in the professional development, she'll have some slides today. It shows what we've done and where we're going in the professional development area.
All
so
right.
I'm going to hand off to Dana.
All right, thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you for having us. We're excited to share our special ed programs with you. So this first slide just talks about our education programs within special ed here in Chico Unified, and anywhere from mild, moderate, all the way preschool to the adult program. Next slide. And then these are the special education providers that provide services to all of our students on IEPs. Next slide. And then we added a slide for all the inclusion opportunities that Chico Unified provides our students. We're lucky to have this many inclusion, and we're looking to add more. Oh, sorry. Next slide. So back in 2015, CDE, they created a task force for special ed, looking at how the future is going to be, and having special ed not an adjunct in the school districts, but really having one system. And the recommendations that came out of that are creating universal design for learning, the framework within school districts, MTSS, multi-tier systems of supports, really focusing on the academics, the social, emotional, and the positive behavioral supports, which Chico Unified is following right down this path. It's fabulous to see. And then early interventions for all students. This slide shares about the SPED responsibilities. Back in 2002-2003, Chico Unified did take over the special ed programs, the Mod Severe special ed programs from the SELPA. And at that time, we had a principal, we had a vice principal, we had a director, and then a coordinator came along. Last year, we took over our ERMS program, and Damie has done a fabulous job of creating an ERMS program. We changed the name from ED over to Access, and so this chart just kind of shows what each one of us do in the district. Next slide. Here's another slide that ranges from mild, moderate to preschool to the adult program, kind of another area of what we provide for our students. And then as we get into services that we provide for our students on IEPs, we have speech therapists, OI, which is our orthopedically impaired teacher. We have adaptive PE for our students, occupational therapy. And then we also have ERMS, which is our educationally related mental health services, which is one of those programs. What we have in parentheses is the number of students that we have receiving those services. And then on the next couple of slides, we'll show you, you can go to the next slide, is starting with Loma Vista. And the amount of students that we have there currently is 263. Many of those students are actually on campus. Some of them are on within Head Start, but are served by a district special ed teacher. And we have an adult program, and then we also have speech-only students that are served at McManus, but they are on the Loma site. In our elementary, we have 717 students. 14% of our elementary students are on IEPs. And I won't go through each and every one of them, but the first number shows the amount of students, anywhere from our extensive needs support students to our speech only. So just as an example, Chapman has 62 students on IEPs, 21% of their population. Next slide. For junior high, we're looking at 380 students, 15% within the district, and again, it's broken down on each one of those slides. The high school is 542. There's 13% of our students that have IEPs, and this is where we have our adult program included into this as well. Next slide. Okay, and then we have a few additional programs. We have the Oak Ridge Online, and we have Forest Ranch. We serve students over there. We support them. And then we also have a few in private schools. They're residential placements. And I'm going to go ahead and let Joanna take over this slide.
So this slide shows the growth of our moderate to severe special education programs over the years. And you can see, although overall district enrollment has continued to be relatively steady, our the number of students with moderate to severe disabilities has grown significantly over time, especially in the preschool and elementary age ranges. I'd like to introduce Jacqueline Kruger, who will speak a little bit about special education budgets.
Yes, so as you can see, there's a lot of programs that are offered at Chico Unified. So our entire special ed budget is just under 30 million. Right now it's running about 29.6 million. So we do get dollars funded to the district via the SELPA, which is the Special Education Local Plan Area. And those dollars, I just want to remind you, are allocated based on county-wide, so Butte County-wide ADA. So there is no direct correlation between the funding and the number of students identified with IEPs. But it also means that we could be a district that, let's say, is increasing in enrollment, but county-wide enrollment in ADA is going down, then the total dollars available would be going down. We do have, real quick, going back. We do have about $1 million in local funds. Part of that is the ERMS dollars that were just alluded to that we took back, and then we bill back to a couple other districts. So our contribution from the general fund is just over 17 million, so that puts it at 57.8% of the program is funded with unrestricted general fund dollars. From a reference perspective, statewide, it's about 60%. So we're right there with the rest of the districts in the state.
Jacqueline, I'm going to go back to a statistic that you quoted about the SELPA being a county-wide averaging for the ADA. Do we know per pupil how much that's costing us? Because we are getting, a smaller percentage per capita.
So the base rate that each SELPA gets is approximately just over $700 per pupil. So for every student that leaves Butte County, it's about $700 in totality, and then we get a percentage of that.
But if we have more percentage-wise special education students than other districts, and yet there's not an adjustment in the per-student funding, what kind of a hit are we taking?
So what happens is the total dollars available will decline because there's less enrollment.
Right.
But if we are static and everyone else is decreasing, or we're increasing and everyone's decreasing, our percentage of the pie gets bigger. So we may get 52% of the pie now, but if other districts are declining, we may get 58 or 60% of the pie.
Ah,
But the pie itself may go down slightly.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So two pieces I wanted to hone in on for the current year. We have some new funding coming to the district. We alluded to ERMS, educationally related mental health services. This was something that the SELPA provided to Chico Unified. We took that program back in the current year. We get just over $600,000, which covers a halftime coordinator and 5 clinicians. And then additionally, in the current state adopted budget, we'll get an additional $600,000 for early intervention preschool services, so supplemental services for our littles who are with special needs. Oh, yes. So one of the comments that was made at a last board meeting was related to co-teaching and the impact that that would have on our students. So Diane and I met, and we looked at the secondary mild mod program. And right now, we account for 75% inclusion. And in order to hit the state mandate, we need 80%. So we would need an additional 7.5 FTE in order to make that program work. So $750,000, $770,000 roughly in order to incorporate that. And that would be a local choice here at the districts. There wouldn't be additional SELPA dollars to fund that.
And that's secondary only?
Yes, that's
Secondary
only.
9 through 12,
No, 6 through 12,
6 through 12.
junior high and high school.
So I'd like to ask Diana, in the chart where we see our enrollment going down somewhat, but the number or the level of the special needs students increasing, do we have some context in which our parents getting more aware of their children's potential issues that affect school, or teachers picking them up early, or somebody's waving a magic wand and going, that kid's one of them, and, you know?
Could you refer me to the slide number that you're looking at right there?
Number 14.
Okay, so this slide right here doesn't really reflect the enrollment. What this, in the general ed population, what this reflects is that we had students in programs that were served by the county in the past, and this was prior to 2002.
Okay.
As a district, we started taking programs back and running them ourselves. That way we have more local control over them. We can hire the people. And so what this shows is that as we took those programs back, it increased the number of programs we had, and then we were serving more students on our campuses rather than maybe sending them to Butte County. However, the other piece of your question is, how is special education increasing the number of students versus general ed?
Yes.
In the past, it's been as general ed has increased, the special ed has increased commensurately. It's been pretty even. Since COVID, and I'm even going to go back to, prior to COVID, I'm going to go back to the dam experience, and I'm going to go back to the fire, and not just the Camp Fire, but also the Santa Rosa fires, the Redding fires, the Greenville fires. Every time one of those events have happened, we've opened Red Cross shelters here in Chico. And what we have found in the special education area is that a lot of families that don't have the resources or were maybe had unstable homes stayed here, and many of those families have students with higher needs.
Okay.
And so there has been an impact because of those things. The other thing I would like to say is that I've had a lot of families just recently, very severe needs students, moving in, and a lot of times they come to my office first, and their comment is, we have heard such great things, no one else has services, you have services, and we are spreading the word. So there is a little bit of word spreading going around that we do have programs that can meet very special needs for our students.
Well, I'm not going to argue with that.
Diane, did I hear you say that we give some kids back to the county? Is my mind playing tricks on me?
That was in the past. So programs, the SELPA and Butte County, part of their role is to create what are called regional programs that serve the needs of students. And it kind of goes to Eileen's question, is the money goes to all the small districts. The small districts can't run those programs. And so it used to be a long time ago, before 2002, we would have the county provide those services. And then we'd get billed back quite significantly for those. So by bringing the programs back, there's no bill back. We control costs. We control who we hire in the programs. So we no longer send a large number of students to programs that are not run by Chico Unified. There will still be students that might get referred to high-level, very intensive programs that we don't have the resources to run here. But the number right now, we have 4 students in out-of-district placement. Yeah, so.
So this kind of goes back to the graph that just showed mod severe trends. But then also before that, there were the slides that kind of broke it down to elementary, junior high, and high school, which is all IEPs. And so I guess my question that came up was just seeing that this is a snapshot. I'm assuming that high school currently is at 13% students with IEPs, and elementary is 14%, and junior high is 15%. That's current, is my understanding. Is that reflective of a trend, or are we seeing less percentage of students at the high school levels with IEPs generally year to year, or is it kind of like anything else where it follows the same trend, so we would expect to see higher numbers in the next few years because there's a higher percentage at the junior high level now?
Great question. So how special education and services to students with disabilities work is that it is the role of special education teachers and programs to give students the skills to self-advocate, to self-regulate, to implement their own accommodations. Just like I know that I cannot see you without my glasses. So on my own, I will put on my glasses so I can see you better. Our job, and you'll hear from a lot of people, what they do in programs to teach students to do these on their own. So ultimately our job is to exit students. That's why typically high school numbers are lower. And I'm going to say our speech program in particular does a great job of exiting students as they get older and older. So that's one of their strengths. And so high schools tend to be higher. The trend we're seeing right now is a huge growth in preschool. These are mod severe students, so students with the highest disability needs, being identified and referred to our programs. So preschool is really shooting up right now because of that.
Do we have, I guess I would be curious, and this is probably kind of outside the scope of this current presentation, but I'd be curious to know when it does dip at the high school level, the number of, relative number of students who have, exited the program versus exited the district. And is there any kind of concern that at the high school level, is everything still, are all the accommodations being met as the student is going up, or are any students leaving the district for any particular reasons once they leave the high school, reach the high school level?
You're going to see some data coming up that really talks about our graduation rates, our CTEs, and the involvement of students in, and our dropout rates.
Yeah.
And you're going to see that students aren't leaving the district.
Cool.
They are being
I think it would just
successful.
it's probably just nice to see the number of students who are coming in at the high school level and then exiting the program because they have met their
Right.
their
And it is a
growth.
dashboard, it is a dashboard item, so we do run our graduation rates, and you will see that on here.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
So that is a perfect segue for Tim Karras, our Director of Assessment and Accountability, is going to talk about some of the data.
Good evening. Most of the data that I'm going to share tonight has been shared with our LCAP community groups that have come to give input on the LCAP. So a lot of this is really the same data, but just focused down on our special education population in comparison to all of our students. So what you're looking at here is regarding elementary literacy growth. And in both cases, in all cases of charts of this type in this presentation, the blue bar indicates the most recent data, and the black line indicates what we're comparing to. So in this case, the blue line in both of these charts indicates 21-22 data, it's current data, compared to data from last year. Both of these are measuring student growth from the baseline measure that's taken in August to the trimester 2 measure that's taken in February. The first chart is focused on our K2 students, and it's looking at phonics score growth between the 2 years. Really what we wanted to do here is look at how are we recovering from students, being out of in-person instruction for a significant part of the last couple years. And what we see in our K2 phonics scores is we see, as we would expect, this is a great celebration that we're doing better, but we should expect to do a lot better with the kids in person all day. We see all students making a significant amount of growth compared to last year, as well as students with disabilities on the second line.
What are these numbers on the bottom of the chart there?
That is the point growth that we would expect. So one phonics skill is 1 point.
And there's 22 points total?
There is 91. Right, so this is just growth. This is not overall score. Okay.
Does that mean looks like maybe we're kind of low, we're scoring kind of low. Is there like an average, or where should we be?
Basically what we're looking at here is growth, not proficient.
Okay.
Or
So in theory, by the end of the year, they'll be in the 90s? I'm not understanding, I guess, how the ranking, those numbers on the bottom relate to
Okay.
the overall picture.
So when a student takes a test at the beginning of the year,
Yeah,
they're given a score 1 through 91.
okay,
Okay. If they know, if a kindergartner comes in and they know, 7 sounds at the beginning of their score is 7 points.
okay.
If they've grown, in this case, it would be about 5 points. That would say the average, that student would have grown to 12, say. So really what we're measuring is the rate of growth here.
Okay, I think I understand one last thing.
Grades 3 to 5, we're looking at star reading text level. The numbers at the bottom of this one indicate the amount of growth as well. However, for this measure, every student at each grade level has the same growth goal. From baseline to try to, they're expected to grow 0.6 points, so that's roughly 2/3 of a year. And we can see that overall, and this one's clear with what you were getting at, Mr. Tennis, we can see that on average, all students grew 0.9 years, so that's almost a full year of growth. Students with disabilities grew 0.7 points, which is still above our expected growth number for baseline to try to measures.
I think you said this a second ago, but it didn't process. Where does that 0.6 come from? Who determines that growth?
That is the star reading test.
So the state determines that, or is it Star State?
I'm sorry, Renaissance Place is the company that
okay.
we contract with,
Okay.
and star reading is the test within their assessment
Gotcha.
suite that we use to test text level.
So they're the ones that tell their purchasers, like us, their consumers, that 0.6
Correct.
is the basically your target, and anything above that's even better.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Cool, thanks.
All right, now this one is focused on secondary kids. And we wanted to make sure that we were coming out of, if some of you remember the fall of the 2021 school year where we had a significant increase in the numbers of Ds and Fs. We've seen that decline. We've seen that decline in students with disabilities by a greater percentage than all students. So that's a good sign. It's still higher than any of us would like to see, but it's good that we're moving in the right direction. The bottom chart is displaying percentages of graduates, or I'm sorry, of our graduating cohort. So this includes non-graduates as well, that completed the A to G course of study. So that's meeting UC and CSU entrance requirements. And we see students with disabilities grew fairly significantly, while our all students took a little bit of a dip. Okay. With graduation, we also see students with disabilities increasing at a higher percentage than our all students student group. And in suspension, while it is higher than we would like, students with disabilities have declined at a greater rate than our all students student group. So from the previous comparison year.
Mr. Harris, can you go back one slide, please? So graduation, students with disabilities declined at a greater rate, so they're graduating fewer?
Graduation rate, the students
Opposite.
with disabilities, the percentage grew at a greater rate
Okay.
than all students.
Thank
did.
you.
Yep. So we're looking now at students taking any college and career and technical education course. And what we see is a significant increase in students with disabilities that are able to take CTE classes at the high schools. This is largely attributed to Chico High's block schedule.
Yeah,
That-
that's
or,
what I
I'm
was
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, their block schedule that they implemented this year. And so we hope to see even a higher growth with PB implementing the block schedule next year.
So in a sense, I don't know, that means that it's not quite comparing apples to apples then, right? So it would be interesting to know, I'm sure there was probably still a growth, but, if you took that factor out, because before you even said that, I was wondering if that was because there was greater availability of those courses, which kind of levels it out a little bit, you know, instead of saying, look how much it grew. It's like, it's because there was a better availability for them to actually take those classes, which is still a positive, but just not
Yeah,
saying, just not saying the same thing.
It's a huge positive, and having a broad course of study for all student groups, not just students with disabilities, is a big part of the reason why we are moving forward with block scheduling at both of our comprehensive high schools. So I do think it is something to celebrate. Making that move will give kids a lot more flexibility in their courses of study.
So I see that this is the numbers of students taking the CTE courses. Have the numbers for completers of CTE pathways gone up similarly?
We won't see the outcome of the block schedule as far as like completers for a couple more years, just because it'll take time to have those kids, give those kids time to take those classes and move through them.
But even before we look at the block schedule, are we seeing a similar, is the trend for completers similar to the trend presented here, which goes back to 2017? Sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I don't want to speak without the numbers.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, there are no numbers on that, but that's part of the, right now, that's part of this presentation, is that inclusion is allowing us to be able to do that. And the block schedule is allowing us to have more opportunities for that inclusion. My prediction is if we were to pull out numbers, it might not match right now, but having those 8 periods and therefore having more opportunity with your schedule to access those classes will provide opportunities for more completers. Also, this also allows all of our students, our mod severe students, are now able to also go into a lot of those CTE with modifications, accommodations, and supports from their teachers and their staff. And so overall, the completers, that's, I think, probably a goal area that we need to work on. And my prediction is that I would not see the same growth. But like Tim says, until we see that actual data, it's hard to give you a direct answer on that.
Right, and as another thought on that, we would expect CTE completion rates to go up significantly over the next few years with the availability based on the block schedule.
So Tim, when you say completion rate, you don't mean one course, you mean the
Correct.
sequence?
Completing the entire sequence of
Right.
courses with a C- or better.
Right, okay, I just think we needed to clarify
Yep.
that.
So what we're looking at here is least restrictive environment, which is one of the focuses that the state gives us from an accountability standpoint regarding our students with disabilities and their inclusion in regular ed classrooms. And we can see we have met the state target in both. And I'm going to do my best to explain the second one, but I might need to call Dana can explain the next one. So the percentage of students in the classroom of 80% more of the day is higher than the state target. Okay, so we're at 53%. The percentage of students in a regular classroom less than 40%, which we want kids in the regular classroom more. So by missing that, by being below the state target, that's actually a positive. Okay. Any questions? Thank you.
So, as you can imagine, professional development and training are important in supporting the inclusion of our students with disabilities in our larger school community. So these are some of the areas that we focus on in ongoing professional development for our staff. I won't read all of these aloud, but you can see we have a lot of important topics to cover for supporting inclusion. And then on the next slide, you'll see these are some of the opportunities that we have for this professional development and training. Anything from our district-wide staff development to site-specific trainings, new teacher trainings at the beginning of the school year in a variety of different places.
Can I ask you a question about an article that the ER ran yesterday about state-funded training for faculty to recognize mental health issues. And they were saying that any teacher could get it and the state would pay for it. So are we spending our own dollars instead of the state bonus money, or is this more diverse in its aims?
These trainings are more special education
okay.
specific. So specific to students with disabilities.
Okay.
As compared with the mental health trainings that are available for all staff.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a follow-up question on that. If these trainings are specific for special ed staff, at what point do regular ed teachers also get exposed to this kind of training? Because if our point is to have our students integrated at a greater rate, and you're not helping the general ed teacher learn, you know, the skills and the pitfalls of how to support special ed students, when do they get it?
So we do, our general education teachers and general education staff are included in this professional development. So our focus is training people in how to support students with disabilities within our general school community. So, but however, gen ed teachers and gen ed staff are included in these trainings at multiple opportunities.
Is it voluntary, or is it, well, I guess all of them are
Both.
voluntary.
Both.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have voluntary trainings, but then sometimes there are site-specific trainings that happen at a staff meeting where all of our general education teachers are present. So it's both.
Thank you.
All right, now we get into the fun. That all the data is fun for a lot of us, but this is going to celebrate. We do like to look at data, but this is going to celebrate our teachers who are working hard in the classroom, our students who are supporting each other, and gives me chills. I'm very excited about this. So starting with preschool, we have 3 inclusion grants that the preschool is currently working on. We have one called Embedded Instruction, another one called Inclusive Early Education Expansion Programs. And then we have a grant that one of our teachers applied for on her own, and the team is meeting. It's the NorCal Educational Leadership Consortium. And all of these are working towards what we can do for students and staff for that inclusion. And there is coaching involved with the embedded instruction. And this next one is, I want to introduce Marissa, Alistair, and JC. They have a program at Chico High. It's our Voc Ed program, and I'm going to have Marissa share a little bit about that. Come on up.
I'm Marissa Alvister, and I'm not a public speaker. So
And you're going to
You are now, yeah.
forgive me if I refer to my notes while speaking. So I'm the vocational aide at Chico High, and I write curriculum, and then I provide those lessons to students in classrooms and also in my room. I work with small groups, or I work one-on-one. We talk about job readiness, interview skills, nonverbal communication, networking skills, resume building. I also offer career assessments so that we can help students identify their skills and their interests, and then I try to follow that with some job research, and we do that one-on-one usually. Let's see. Well, when I work with students one-on-one, we are typically creating resumes and cover letters, and then with small groups, we do mock interviews. They either hate that or they love it. That's kind of the hardest part. And we do some vocational games as well. I don't know if I have time to go into that, so I might just keep going. I try to send all graduating seniors home with a portfolio. I try to include a copy of their IEP. I give them most of their vocational lessons and worksheets that we've done together. I try to copy those and keep files on all the kids. I send them with vocational resources that they can refer back to. What else is in there? Oh, yes, I try to make sure that they all have a current resume and a cover letter that they're proud of. I include several copies actually so that they have a hard copy to keep. They don't always love to do these things with me, so I try to offer incentives. I have Dutch Bros cards and Mod Pizza coupons for them. Each time I feel like they're really engaged and they're really making an effort, or they show up and complete a resume, that's a big deal. Let's see. I try to make it a fun process. I try to help them discover how many relevant skills they have to offer, how many skills they have to share in the community. We talk about how to advocate for themselves in the workplace. So far this year, I've been able to help 23 students find jobs in the community. So,
Yeah, that's really good.
thank you. Unless there's questions.
Yeah.
No. Thank you so much.
I have just a,
Marissa,
yeah, I don't think you were the teacher at the time, but I visited the program at Chico High, and you had an employer visit that day to talk about
Oh.
having,
Yes, okay, you might be thinking of my predecessor. Her name
Yes.
is Sharon Byrne. So part of this job can also include inviting speakers to come onto campus, and with COVID and with this block schedule, we haven't been doing
Yeah.
that this year, and I'm really hoping to get back to that next year, because that's something the kids really enjoyed. I'm working on it. I'd love to do that again.
it was probably 4 years ago at least.
Yeah, that's
But
Sharon
the comments from the employer, who had received one of your students as an employee, said
I know who you're
that
talking about.
it was wonderful. The student
Yep.
showed up on time, took instruction well, had all of the
hear.
skills that, an employer wanted and was willing to learn new stuff and find the thing. I was very impressed with how prepared someone coming out of that class
Yeah,
was.
I had a wonderful trainer in Sharon Byrne. She did a fantastic job at Chico High. Yeah,
Well, I was impressed with the whole presentation.
that's great. I'm going to pass it on. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
thank you both.
Marissa does a great job getting the kids ready for the job opportunities that she sets them up for.
Our second program is from Chico Junior. It's Melanie Perrin and Holly Gutierrez, and they have a co-teach program over there that they've been co-teachers for 6 years. I'll let them share about their program.
Hi, my name is Melanie Perrin. I'm a 6th grade math teacher at Chico Junior. This is my 19th year of teaching and my 10th year with Chico Unified.
My name's Holly Gutierrez. I'm an educational specialist at Chico Junior. I've been teaching for 11 years, and this is my 6th year teaching for Chico Unified. We are here to talk to you about our experiences with co-teaching. We have co-taught for the past 6 years at Chico Junior in 6th grade Math A.
So our first year was a learning year. We didn't even know that we were co-teaching on the first day of school. Holly walked in and said, "Hi, I'm gonna be with you." And I was like, all right. So I really focused on the math curriculum and how we were gonna deliver that. And I was learning during this time who my students with IEPs were, which accommodations they needed. Holly focused on making sure that the kids with accommodations and IEPs had everything that they needed, as well as learning the grade 6 math content standards. Over the years, our roles have shifted and changed naturally. If you were to walk into our classroom today, you may see Holly teaching the whole class and me walking around supporting students. Or you may also see one of us at the back on the back whiteboard and one of us on the front whiteboard working out the same problem with different methods that kids are coming up with throughout the classroom. So we're calling attention to all the students in the class and what they know and need in the class.
What was important is we both had to come with the mindset that we're going to learn different content areas from each other. We also had to trust each other. This wasn't something that could be forced upon us. It was something that took time and something we worked on. This is a long-term commitment, not only to ourselves, to each other, but to our students. If we only did this for 1 year, we would not see all of the wonderful benefits we've seen the past 6.
During the past 6 years, we have attended many training sessions for co-teaching offered by Chico Unified. They've helped us to create different opportunities for our students. They also provided us with times to be observed ourselves and then reflect upon our teaching and how we could make it better together.
A few of the many benefits of co-teaching are we are able to run small group instruction with differentiation, meaning that each student in 6th grade is getting exactly what they need at their level. Students are able to see both teachers as equals, not a teacher with an aide. We are able to see students through 2 sets of eyes, which can see many different things. The students also have 2 teachers that they are able to go to for help.
So that is what we have. Thank you for listening to us about co-teaching. Do you guys have any questions?
Any questions?
Since I have a kid that thinks math is horrible, and I was a math freak, I really appreciate that you're
We
working.
would change that child's mind.
I don't know.
We don't let them walk out hating
They
math.
didn't have us.
I saw a number of demonstrations on co-teaching, and I loved your description of how you got to get, because it said either it works or it doesn't work and you get a divorce. Yeah.
Still together.
But one of the interesting statistics that came out of the reports that I saw was that over the 3 years that they measured, that the non-special ed students gained at a greater rate than they would have been had they been with a different cohort. And it was it was interesting. The explanation was that they become part of the teaching and learning process, and by doing that, learn more than they think they're going to learn. So I am very much in support of co-teaching, and I appreciate you ladies not having gotten a divorce.
All right. Caitlin?
I think it's really great to hear that it sounds like it's a true co-teaching program, because I think a lot of people misunderstand what a co-taught classroom looks like, which is 2 teachers that have equal presence, that do co-planning and talk about how we're going to each tackle giving this lesson. Are you going to be the person who floats? Are you going to pull those 3 kids off who missed the last 2 days and kind of catch them up as I'm, moving the rest of the class forward? Are we going to split it into stations? There's lots of different co-teaching strategies that it sounds like you're implementing, which is great. I had just a couple of questions so that we all can get a better idea, a better picture of your classroom as it has evolved to what it is now. How many periods are you 2 teaching this this co-taught? Yeah.
So we co-teach 3 periods of Math A.
Okay. And then so your other math classes, what else do you teach?
Oh, I teach 2 other Math A classes without Holly.
Okay, gotcha. And then Holly, what do you do when you're not in the co-teaching classroom?
I run an academic support class the period that I'm not with her. The other 2 periods are preps.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And then so as far as the percentage of students with IEPs in your class goes, what's the percentage of students with IEPs in each class or generally?
So the best part about that is I could answer that question as a general ed teacher, which I think is important, and it's about 30%.
So like an average or in each class?
In each class,
Awesome.
in each of our co-taught classes.
Yeah.
I like the smile.
My?
I know the
That's how I
answer.
get them to love math. And
Now we don't
can
have the math.
And now we can see it.
Yeah. And so how much time do you have to actually do your co-planning, the stuff outside of the actual lesson presentation? Because I think what a lot of people who haven't been in education at the K-12 level in the classroom understand, like, it's not just those 50 minutes a day that you're with kids, that there's so much that goes into that and that comes out of that that you still have to process and follow up on.
So this year is the first year we actually don't share prep. And actually it was last year also, but again, it was a different model last year and just due to master schedule. So Melanie and I create our own time together. So when we're just talking about, that first period, that didn't go well. So we have 4 minutes to change it up before second period comes in, because we're probably gonna see the same thing. Maybe they missed that concept as a whole, then let's change it up. Oh, we need to add some extra notes. So we do a lot of that in between that 4 to 5 minute passing period, just to kind of prep for how can we make it better just the next period that we see a set of students. So we share a lot of documents together. We, edit a lot of things of what we're gonna present.
Text each other. I think that's the other part of liking who you're working with is you are always talking to that person. And so anytime you're thinking of an idea, you do have to fly it by the next person. So like at night, we'll be talking like through text, like, okay, I was thinking of changing this. So it's on our own time too that we're coming up with those things, those strategies that are gonna work better for the next day.
Do you also still have students with IEPs outside of your co-taught classes?
So there are some IEP students who don't have math goals, and if they don't have math goals, then they could be in a non-co-taught math class.
Okay. And then, so those 3 Math A classes, are the only periods with students with IEPs that have math goals?
In sixth grade.
In sixth grade, yes, sorry.
Yes.
And is anything like this happening at the 7th or 8th grade level, or is it just 6th grade?
Co-teaching itself is only at the 6th grade level, and I want to say because we've been trained and we know it truly is a true co-taught model, we have aid support in our 7th grade and our 8th grade classes.
Gotcha. Is there any other co-teaching happening at the?
I think they're trying to branch out into English, but it is finding the right person to co-teach with. The first year we didn't really have a choice. We were just like, all right, we're doing this. And it was the first year at the junior highs. Like all of us just started at the junior highs. And it just became something that we were both passionate about. So I think that's the other thing is that when I look at a student, I don't just see a math student, I see the whole student. And so that makes it easy for me to see where Holly's coming from when she's seeing a student. And so it kind of blends our ideas together. So I think you kind of really have to have a different mindset when you're seeing those kids and teaching together.
Yeah, I think what's really great about the co-taught classroom, especially when we're talking about inclusion, and Eileen kind of brought up the topic of training general ed teachers, and really the best way to do that is to be in the classroom with a teacher who is certified and can, be your teammate in developing those lessons. And what you do and the accommodations you make in those lessons really do spill over and help all kids.
1,000%. Yeah.
So all that scaffolding and all of those different, differentiated types of approaches to learning, really help, I think, all kids. And I think that that's pretty awesome. I'm really excited that you have that going and can serve as a model, hopefully, for some expansion in that field. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both, and stay married.
So another one of our programs is from PV, which is our Access program. We do have Access programs, formerly known as our ED program, both at Marigold, Marsh, and PV, and Amanda and Danny are here. Thank you.
Hi, it's really nice to see everyone. This is my first year here in Chico, so it's very inviting, very warm and welcoming. My name's Amanda Ramirez. I am a part of the Access program here at PV High School, so I teach grades 9 through 12. As you know, the Access program was our emotionally disturbed program, ED program. So I'm very excited to be a part of this wonderful program as it continues to support an inclusive environment for our students. So today I'm really eager to share some of the many supports that we do provide our students as well as our general education teachers in that process as it develops through our inclusion process. So a big part of having our students with such significant needs is to integrate or be included, our students be included within the general education. And a part of that process is communication and collaboration, again, with not only just our little department, but with those teachers that we're working with. One way of communicating the needs of our students with our teachers is through our action. I brought a little example. We share our binders. Everything's highly confidential. So I communicate with my teachers. Of course, we've provided some strategies for support, management, behavioral management within those classes, who to communicate, how to communicate. So just little cheat sheets such as this and flow charts, because it can be very confusing on who to call and what to do. So any kind of support for the student and the teacher, we do training, and I do training with those teachers as well. Sorry, little anxious, a little nervous. So going back to, also included within these binders as well as the behavior support plans. So all the students or the teachers are aware, which also includes just their basic IEP information, which is the BIP or behavior intervention plan on how to work with our students, as well as accommodations and any goals that we might be working, and we work with the teacher to help support those goals as well. Continuous collaboration through email and in-person talks is also a large part of our Access program. Another piece that I really want to highlight are our paraeducators. They, to me, it's my personal opinion that they're the backbone of our program because they go directly into the classes with our students. So our behavior paraeducators are known as intensive behavior interventionalists. They go ahead and help students, assist in identifying when the students are becoming emotionally elevated. They assist students with self-regulation. They also collect behavioral data to drive our IEP goals and behavior intervention plans. This is also what helps with the placement of our students. We definitely look at the behaviors to determine the appropriate support. As a team, along with our clinicians, we strive to support our students in transitioning to independent adults. Having our Access students have the opportunity to be included with typical peers has greatly benefited their ability to learn how to function and cope within typical academic environment. This is just one step forward in shaping young adults with significant social, emotional needs and living successful lives. So I look forward to continuing to work with this program. This is just an extremely positive program as we move forward and continue to grow.
I have kind of a dumb question. Are you roughly equivalent to Marissa at Chico High?
Educational specialist.
So kind of the same, apples to apples?
Yeah.
A child who was,
Marissa is a vocational aide, and Amanda is a credentialed.
Thank you.
And the goals are different. Yeah, the programs are very different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so this is,
you were talking about getting, you were talking about getting people into the workforce. Did I hear you say that?
yeah, so I also work as part of the transition planning. Of course, it's individualized per student need. So we work with the goals of the students. So transition planning is a large part of my student population, grades or ages 15 and above.
And to clarify on that, because I think their question is about transition planning. So when a student turns 16 and they have an IEP, every case manager has to make sure that we're doing those transition activities. And then each of the high schools, we have also hired a Marissa to help with implementing those transition goals. So they're all responsible for it.
Thank you.
Dr. Kaiser? I have a question. Is it your experience that most students attend their IEPs with their parents?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Do they have their parents participating with the IEP process?
I always sat in on the IEPs.
Yes.
And the meetings.
My student insisted on being there too, or, Grandma wasn't going to give him a ride home. No, she was just very interested in hearing what the teachers had to say about how she was doing, and being part of framing the goals, even though that was difficult for her to agree to goals because that's making, a big commitment. Do most students participate in that process?
Yes, absolutely. Having student understanding. So for me as a teacher, part of the transition process is including the student. The IEP is based on them, and as we're working forward, it's based on their goals of employment or life after. A big part of that is at the age of 18 for my students, they are going to be making these big decisions on their own. So they do need to understand what they need as an individual. So part of my process in supporting my students within transition is understanding the supports that are available to them, understanding life after high school, which would include them being a part of the meeting and also developing those goals.
It's my experience that looking forward to even what the next day is going to bring is very difficult, especially for kids with autism. For some reason or another, they don't connect to future. Do you recognize that as a universal issue with especially some of the high-achieving autistic kids?
And autism is very specific. It's a spectrum, so
Yeah.
some students are a little bit more able compared to others, so it's really based on their individual abilities. So it is an individualized piece, but yes, part of the autism spectrum, there are sometimes those difficulties of looking into the future and understanding a greater, the bigger picture of what they're doing now and accepting that. However, again, I've worked with, this is my 15th year of teaching, so I've worked with students who are very capable of making those decisions and other students who have struggled. So it's a spectrum.
Thank you.
So just so I'm understanding correctly, you are specifically in the Access program, which so Access is a new concept for me. New acronym. Brand new acronym. So when I was teaching at Marsh, it was the ED program, and there was I got to have that inclusion in my classroom with a para, and it was a really enriching experience, I think, for everybody. But I was curious about when this program, whether it was ED versus Access, like whatever it has been called, when did this start really when, trying to do the push into the general ed classes with these particular students?
My understanding would be that that is always the goal for students on IEPs, is to mainstream and include as much as possible, as much as the student can, and feel comfortable and be successful. Was your experience at Marsh that it was not?
No. Well, so we have students with IEPs, but then we have our mild mod severe, and then our now Access students. And, there's some overlap in some areas, obviously, depending on each individual student's circumstances. But I'm specifically speaking to inclusion for those Access students, previously known as ED students. So yeah, I've always experienced inclusion in the classroom as a science teacher, but it was the last, I think, 2 years at Marsh that I was there was when I would have an ED student placed in my classroom, which is a very different experience. Sometimes it's more of just getting them used to showing up to class with a room full of other kids, and at the general ed level, and, celebrating the fact that they made it through the day and they asked questions and were excited, but they didn't do the work, which is fine, So there's obviously each individual student has individual goals, which is why it's a IEP. But I was curious about the push in for specifically the Access kids. Because that doesn't seem to be, hasn't seemed to be as prevalent in my experience. Very personal experience, I understand. As so much as, more of like mild to moderate students with IEPs. Does that make more sense?
I could say it used to be more of a self-contained, like day treatment program where the students were with one teacher and the clinician for most of the day. Since we've taken it over, it's not a regionalized program anymore, and I've overseen the Access classes for the past 2 years, so that has been a goal, is more blending and more inclusion. So I think it has gradually become, over time, that's all I've known, and that's what we were doing at Pleasant Valley High School as a school psychologist. But I can see there being a time in the past when it was more self-contained.
The reason for taking programs back is that they were viewed, sometimes programs run by a family viewed as separate programs, not part of campus.
And was this all of the transitions that happened, was that 2016? Or was that something different?
2 years ago, maybe? Yeah, 2 years ago.
Oh, it was 2 years ago. Okay. So I guess, so in my experience, I'm just trying to connect my experience to what's more broadly happening now, so I can have a better context of like what it looks like, And I feel like maybe I was in kind of the piloting phase of pushing in for those types of students, if that makes sense. Okay. So it's broader now, and it's much more, much more robust at this point.
Yes, absolutely, and accepted. I was just talking to one of the BCOE school psychologists, and it's still they can't find a school that has room for their ED program for the middle school on this campus because they tend to be more challenging students, and that's what she's feeling, like a little bit of discrimination, like, so I can see being a part of a campus and being part of a school district, it's blending more, and the students are definitely more included than they were
That's
previously.
amazing.
Yeah.
And so it's happening at both high schools?
Yep, we have 2 programs at PV High School, one at Marigold and one at Marsh.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
sorry, I'm sorry.
sorry.
2 at one high school, just at
Two,
PV.
so they're both at PV? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you.
All right, and we'll go ahead and have Sarah Van Wert come up, and Sarah's going to talk about our itinerant program, which is our inclusion program in the elementary. Sarah is both at Marigold and at LCC running the program there.
Hi, everyone. I'm super nervous. Sorry. Okay. I'm an inclusion support teacher for the elementary schools here at Chico Unified. In my 19 years of experience, I have watched firsthand the amazing effect inclusion has on all individuals. In my classroom, we had a mission statement to foster an environment that promotes inclusion and independence. In my role now, I provide support to general education teachers, push in support to classrooms, and try my best to support the site however they feel my skills could be helpful, with behavior, social skills, academics. Recently, I was able to attain a copy of a special education study that was done in May of 2019. Their goal was to provide the district with a review and objective analysis with recommendations regarding effective and efficiency of the special education programs. On page 49 of this report, one of the emerging practices was to expand the implementation of co-teaching models across the elementary schools. I realize the district has made an effort to increase inclusion by collapsing the mild mod classrooms and pushing those students into general education classrooms. Unfortunately, from my perspective, it feels like on a daily basis, there wasn't necessarily the support or the education for the general education and the special education staff to make such a large move. Inclusion's hard, really hard sometimes. It takes training, support, collaboration, and follow-through consistently and often. Research shows that this is the most effective service model for many students and is one of the most cost-effective as well. Special education is not always just a program, it's a set of services. On page 47 of the report, it indicates that the district operates, quote, a model integration program at the preschool level, Innovative Preschool. Innovative Preschool is a blended preschool of students with differing abilities. They create an adult-rich environment where they meet students where they are and teach them. They educate the students about differences and teach them how to help each other. This deeply rooted program in the community for 31 years should be adopted and implemented at the K-1 level. We should make it a priority. I propose that we begin a pilot program at a few schools and utilize UDL strategies, implement MTSS supports heavily in the hopes that we can provide a support-rich, inclusive environment for the younger grades and fade it out as they grow. The inclusive program like this provides support for students with IEPs as well as students without, as those supports are embedded in the program. Innovative provides us with a model to start with. Designate an inclusion coordinator to oversee and support programs, provide training to all educators and administrators together on ways to support students with all abilities within the general education classroom. Research shows that early intervention is key. Thank you.
Thank you. You're not going to get away from the microphone that quickly. Your last statement about what the benefits of inclusion. In the things that I've read too, the early intervention and early inclusion, like starting at Innovative, is how students are able to transition into full special, or not special ed, but general ed classes.
And I think we have evidence of that in some of what we have already tried and are already doing at our younger grades. And am I hearing you correctly in that you're recommending that we just focus a little bit deeper in getting that accomplished? I know it has to do with money because it's the staffing that makes it work.
It is, and that is definitely the journey that we're on, is working for that inclusion, going back to that preschool grant, or grants that we have, working on that inclusion, continuing with the co-teaching and continuing with our itinerant programs, and fostering that with the education to our general ed teachers as well.
Well, I support it.
Thank you. I feel like we've seen like some of the amazing programs that are happening at the secondary level, and sometimes in my little elementary school bubble, we don't always get to see that. I think that we could probably do a better job of starting them off in a more inclusive setting so that more students are benefiting from all the amazing programs at secondary. Because at elementary, it's still pretty
Yeah.
set.
So,
And we're good,
sorry. I think we've said the same thing 3 times, so I just want to make sure. We're talking about taking a model that is like Innovatives and expanding it to other sites. Well, and forgive me, what is the status of Innovative right now? Hey, Kate.
So we are, obviously, now we have new legislation that is encouraging preschool for all. So we will be opening our own preschools and actually already have some and expanding that. So we are in conversations with Innovative about learning from them, working with them, bringing those programs together. And that's kind of where the conversations are right now. There's lots of ways it can go. They may or may not want to be a part of Chico Unified. They may want to break off on their own. Our goal, I think they run an outstanding program, and I think we could learn a ton from them. But that's all part of the negotiation process. We'd love to have their staff as part of our staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay. So first I was going to say at the beginning, and this is to go out to anybody who's come up and said, I'm not a public speaker. All of you that are educators are public speakers, because you get up in front of people every day. Doesn't matter how tall we are. You're still the expert, not us. So just the fact that, our age is a little higher doesn't mean that you can't speak to us as the expert in the room. I also want to thank you wholeheartedly, a lot, for standing up there and saying, this is what I recommend. Because I think that sometimes these presentations turn too much into, let's pat ourselves on the back and look at all the great things we're doing. It's true, there's a lot of great things that we're doing, but there are always ways we can make things better. And I think in this field, we can make a lot of things better. And I think that it's really important that we hear from you and from your peers, what needs to happen. Because there's always going to be a money budget issue, but let's prioritize and say, fine, let's figure it out. Let's write some grants. Let's do some things in a more innovative way. And so I think that it's really important that you, as an educator, and your peers always come and advocate, and not be afraid to talk to the board or just people. Like, I'm literally just an educator. Anyway, I just wanted to thank you for pointing that out, because I think that that's a great place for us to start to further this conversation. We were given some numbers about budgets at the at the secondary level for doing co-teaching, but also we need to talk about the big picture, and it does start at the elementary school level. And I think that all of us can agree that are familiar with educational research that up to 3rd grade, that's kind of our key time to capture those students and to really do the most work, get the most bang for our buck, so to speak, if we're going to talk about budgets at that level. And 10 years from now, we're going to see that payout in dividends at the high school level. Exactly. So again, thank you for being here and advocating. I think it's amazing.
I got a question. You probably said this, but what is the grade levels that you focus on?
Currently, I serve all kinder, so I serve K-5. But my proposal would be to do an innovative model for the kinders and 1st grade, and then as they're transitioning to 2nd grade, we can look at student need and project from there, whether they can move to a mild moderate caseload, or whether they need a separate mod severe class, or maybe they can go to an inclusion caseload where they push, they push services into the classroom but need a little bit more support, that type of.
You work at Innovative Preschool.
I do not personally work at Innovative. My office is at Loma, and I work at Marigold, and I work at Little Chico Creek, but my daughter attends Innovative. She'll be at Marigold next year. She's a typically developing peer, and that program is, as a special educator, I could not speak highly enough about it. It is inspiring, honestly. The culture there, the inclusivity.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
All right, yes, lots of kids, and you'll see Graham that's going to be coming up at the end of this. He went through Innovative and went into, well, I'm going to let Graham tell you a story, but he also spoke highly of his time in Innovative. Our next one is a new class over at Chico High that, Melody, come on up. Melody proposed this class to Chico High, and Doug made it happen with her. Actually, Melody made it happen along with, he allowed it to, yes, and Chico State. But I'm going to let Melody talk about the PE enrichment. This is a program that is going to be PE credits next year for our students. Sure. Go ahead and I'll let you introduce the video.
Oh, okay. Well, we can watch the video in just a second. Netflix did not pay me to say this, but if you have not seen Love on the Spectrum because of Autism Month, it's amazing. It's okay. So I just wanted to put that out there for people with autism. But this is my class. A student made this video.
bond with the kids that no one else will have. And you get to learn about their disabilities and all the little things that come along with them.
Yeah, I just think it's a really good experience to be able to work with kids with disabilities.
This class is a great learning experience for us and the students with exceptionalities and opens many doors.
We love PE enrichment. The kids helping kids is the best part.
I like the PE enrichment class because it allows my students the ability to be in a class that is geared towards them, and it's teaching regular ed kids how to work with kids with special needs.
This class is on fire!
So if you haven't seen Sing 2, that is a reference from that little song from Sing 2. Anyways, so basically PE enrichment is peer tutors doing physical activity with tutees, and it's almost a one-on-one. Sometimes we get people absent and whatnot, so we have two-on-one. This is Gabby. She's one of our students for general education, and she actually started an innovative. So I don't know if you want to talk about that.
I started at Innovative, and that's where I met my best friend with Down syndrome. So growing up, I've been involved with special ed, and it's something I've always been very passionate about. So when I got told about this class, I wanted all in. I wanted all sorts of in. And so coming into this class has kind of taught me more about it, other than just knowing from my best friend. And so I can't speak for all the students, but I know for me, it's kind of showed me like they're not different. We all just have differences, and they have their own differences, and they shouldn't be treated differently. So in this class, we're kind of taught how to not treat them differently, but make it to where if they can't figure something out, then we can make a difference to make it work for them. And so this class just kind of helps us students show them, just because they can't do it the way we do it, we're able to make a difference to make it happen for them. And so they don't feel left out, or they don't feel like they're different from everybody else because they can't complete something that we can.
I just wanted to add on that. So basically this class, before kids with disability or exceptionalities come in, I train the kids that are in the Gen Ed Pop, and they don't have to have experience, but Gabby never told me about her experience actually until tonight. But I could tell as soon as I've seen her, she just goes right in and is not afraid and gets how to modify everything. So it's really amazing just to see both the kids and the whole class work together, because I've actually had some of these students with disability in my class in previous years, and some of them would not, be pretty afraid to move or really do any of the activity, and now they're just all in, and it's so nice to see. And actually Lindsay Canales comes, and I'm APE certified as well, but she is the APE for Chico Unified, and she says the same thing. She's never seen them move as much as our class. So it's really cool, and these guys go through a big sifting list. They have to be recommended, so they have to do kind of this interview process to be in my class, but I mean, they just make it. I'm there, I made it, the curriculum and everything, and I trained and I help along, but they're the ones that actually make the class run smoothly, so.
Marsh had a class interaction that was apparently quite similar, where, quote unquote, the regular kids would be interacting with the kids that were, had some kind of physical disability. And then one of my granddaughters was a big soccer star at PV, and they let that class of kids come and watch the games, and the kids were completely involved. They were so excited to see somebody they knew, playing soccer. So I was just really touched by how much it meant to them to have a connection.
Do you know when that class was? Because actually my dad, I have a big special ed background. My dad taught at Marsh. He's a special ed teacher. He actually retired, but Dennis Schultz, I don't know if you know him. But that's why I'm in it, because I couldn't decide whether to teach PE or special ed. So I kind of brought it with my master's. I did a big project and whatnot and brought it here, so I get the best of both worlds.
Well, I think it's great just from, it really made, I think, a difference to the students who were some kind of a disability, but it also made a difference to the athletes to realize that they could interact and have a positive influence.
I agree.
Yeah, it was called the Social Club at Marsh. We interviewed kids to be part of that program. We used all kids to be in that because we found it was a positive thing for both the kids in special ed and those classes, but it also helped the students that were working with them to become better individuals, and they felt like they were part of something. And so actually those kids became bonded during lunch, also outside of the social skills. It was a very successful program that they did at Marsh. Yes, Amy and Taryn. Yeah.
Really effective, and we get it back next year in March.
Yay.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So Amy and Taryn Blisman both were big parts of that, and actually got Marcia Golden Bill for that program. So thank you.
All right, good.
So this class is basically peer system with, it actually counts for gen ed students for PE as well. But it's not at PV. I hope it becomes at PV. I know I saw that on the slide. It's only at, it's
gonna be at PV.
Oh, it's gonna be,
Yeah,
yes.
yes.
So that's amazing, because that's the first time I heard of it. So
All right.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
Cool.
All right, thank you so much, you guys. And this is, Gina's gonna introduce our next, Bella.
Right, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Amy Ellen, speech therapist extraordinaire at Marsh Junior High. You guys stepped on my intro there. And Isabella Sanchez, we call her Bella. And I will let Amy introduce the rest of her team, and they're going to come talk about inclusion and how technology can really help get our students better access.
And I won't say that she's been totally bored tonight, but she has requested to board a plane. She wants a window seat, and she's ready for some music.
All right.
So tonight I have the pleasure of introducing this group. My name is Amy Ellen. I'm a speech therapist at Marsh Junior High. And tonight I also have, yeah, you can just say.
I'm Carly Nielsen, the Spanish teacher at Marsh.
And? What are you? A student at Marsh? Yeah. There you go.
And I'm Colin Ingersoll, I'm also a student at Marsh.
And who do we have here? Are you going to share with everybody? Who are you?
Microphone, because they can't hear you. The technology that we're going to talk so greatly about.
She is Bella, and she's the star of our little group. She has been introduced to a new device this year. It has just grown fabulously with her. And three other members that I want to discuss tonight are her classroom teacher, her case manager, which is Nick Castle. She seems to think it's her favorite teacher, but I think I'm her favorite teacher. And then Patty Pruser, who is the instructional assistant. And another team member that comes through the SELPA is Nicole Eads. So we have a great team that works together. Because it takes a lot of focus, as you can see, and all of you are pretty distracting, we did do a quick little video here to talk about inclusion and AAC. So I'm going to let Bella take it away. And I think we only have a few minutes. They're only going to let us talk for a couple of minutes. What do you want to tell them?
Augmentative alternative communication is the term used to describe any form of communication that a person can use with his speech. This means we're pointing to pictures of what the person wants. Using foreign language, when you say the line that will speak in English, when it's specific, that makes visual listening.
So thank you for sharing that information about inclusion in AAC. Carly, can you share a little bit about what inclusion was like for you in Intro to Spanish this year?
Sure. Initially, I was really nervous when I heard that Bella was going to be in my class, just because I've never had a nonverbal student in a Spanish class before, and so I didn't feel very prepared for that, but I had an amazing team behind me that really supported me. First and foremost, her teacher, Nick Castle, who just helped me going through her goals and laid that out for me. Additionally, her aide, Miss Patty, is just an amazing person, supporting me, supporting other students in my class, as well as supporting me and helping me and guiding Bella. Also, my students just opening their arms and hearts to Bella and including her in my classroom. Amy, for the speech therapist, for helping me and accommodating and making modifications for her, helping me to help her engage in class and communicate with others. and it's just been an amazing experience. I'm so blessed to have had her in my class. She's an absolutely amazing person, and I love seeing her smile and shine and getting to use her device with others, so it's amazing.
Thank you. And JC and Cole, can you share an experience or tell us a little bit of what inclusion looked like for you in the classroom? Maybe give an example. Cole, you want to be brave and go first? Okay.
In class, it was really interesting having Bella because I had never seen anybody have a device like that, or have anybody who can speak in a class. But it was also really fun because I got to learn about how she could communicate with others and how I could help her. And like we were doing a project one time, and like she helped us so much with figuring out what we were going to do, and it was just really fun being able to work with Bella and help her and have her help us too.
And we were doing a group project for the capybara unit, and we had to draw animals for the 4 levels of the jungle. We decided to draw a frog. And so we asked Bella what color we should choose for the frog. She used her device to say a purple frog. And so I searched a picture up, and I showed her that, and she was smiling and laughing.
And have you guys ever had a class where you have had anybody use any type of communication device?
Never.
So what did you think about that device? I mean, what did you think about Bella using that?
I've never had anybody have a device like that in a classroom, and I thought that was really cool that technology has gone as far so that people can actually talk and communicate with other people.
Yes. And what takes us usually, a year to get our first word out? She received her device in October, and I mean, in her trial the last spring, she was already in her trial time using it to communicate. By October, I mean, she was saying things like, I love you for the first time, just really precious little things. When she's not feeling well, letting us know that she's not feeling well. So super quick, she has learned to navigate through the system and use it, which is pretty special. Is there any other little experience you want to share with everybody tonight, or is that covering it pretty well? Okay, so there is one more slide, and she's learned, like I mentioned, so many words, so many phrases, and in that middle section there is a video showing her holding her marker or her paintbrush for the very first time. Let's do it. Yeah, keep going. I can get your video. This takes a lot of skill, a lot of practice. We have watched videos because there are eye gaze experts and artists out there. So we have a goal set. We're going to someday reach those goals of getting more fine-tuned, but she does see those things available. So it's been very exciting having her, learning from her, seeing her growth, but honestly, this inclusion has happened because of the team that comes together. They work together, they're consistent, and that is, inclusion is a team. So that's our message here today.
All right. Well, thank all of you, and Bella, especially thank you for sharing.
Our next slide just shows some other students at Chico High in the welding program. And then I'm going to have Joanna introduce Graham.
So I'm very happy to introduce Graham Rohde. Graham is a 2020 graduate from Chico Unified School District. I first met Graham when he was a student at Marsh Junior High School. And so Graham is going to just spend a few minutes telling us about his experiences with Chico Unified.
Is this on? Okay. So, of course, my name is Graham Rohde, and first off, I think first thing you should know about me is I am a person with autism. I was diagnosed at a young age, about 3 or 4 years old, and it's been a part of my life since then. It's usually affected the way I learn and interpret things. Excuse me. Like when someone's talking to me, sometimes I may need them to like repeat it once or twice. But I think the great thing about that is that my autism, my disability, has helped me to help me get to where I am. And so I'm going to just briefly explain my journey and how I got to where I am at this point in my life today. So I started with the Chico Unified School District when I was, again, about 3 or 4 years old. I first went to Innovative Preschool, and then I went to Chapman Elementary, and I think I was in a mod severe program, I believe. I can't remember off the top of my head, but then after that I went to Marsh for 3 years, and then after that I went to PV for 4 years of high school. But I was a special ed student pretty much my entire school life, and so starting in junior high I took a special educated class. And how this worked was like I was in one classroom, like I was in the same class when I began junior high. I was in the same classroom for pretty much the entire day. I was being taught math and maybe English and school subjects, I'm sure, but I always felt just different because every other student that I walked past or maybe even just saw had a lot of different classes than me. They were all mainstream, and I was not a mainstream student just yet, but at that time I always felt like really different because I wasn't mainstream, and I felt like I wanted to just get out and see the world basically within school. So it was late 2013. I had a discussion. I had a discussion, and I asked if I could, try and get into a different math class or something bigger. And so, come late 2013, I took that step and I got into an advanced math class. And throughout my school life, throughout my junior high life, I slowly transitioned into getting more mainstream classes. Like at that point in it was December-ish of that year. That was my start, my start to my road of independence, basically. Like that was my starting point. So then after I graduated from Marsh, I went to PV. Again, I took special educated classes, but at that point I was just pretty much full on mainstream. And I took a class with Gail Olson, who's now a great family friend of ours. I had her for, I think, an English class and maybe a couple other classes down the road. And then I took video and audio production over time as a couple of my electives. I switched between those throughout my school life. And then I took summer school, but I did Workability, which is a paid work program for students to apply to. I think you only get a certain number of hours, but it was about a 2-week-long program. And I did that after freshman, sophomore, and junior year. I did that for those 3 years. And I graduated with a diploma in 2020. But getting back to PV, and Marsh as well, throughout my school life, I also had a lot of instructional aides that would be with me in the classroom, and they would mostly help just to keep me on task and just keep me focused, because I often would get distracted a lot because of my disability. I would often get distracted. distracted, excuse me. But over time, I noticed, I seemed to find that I didn't need them to help me as much. Like they would still be in the classroom with me, but they wouldn't help me as much. If you can understand where I'm coming from, they would be helping other students, which was great. But like I said, I didn't need as much help back then. So then after I graduated in 2020, it was one of my main goals. Was it was in late 2019. I had this goal in mind to my top goal in my life was to start working after I graduated. So then after I graduated, in about mid-August of that year, I found this program through ILS, in Living Services, and I did a bunch of Zoom meetings with them online, and they taught me different topics within the job aspect, like how to act, how to maintain cleanliness, what to wear when you're on the job or when you're working in different jobs, and a whole lot of different topics. So then we had a scheduled in-person interview in November 2020, and my dream job at the time was to work at UPS and help maybe load packages in their trucks. So they were going to get started on an internship with me. They were going to schedule that for me, but I didn't get a call back from them. But in early December 2020, I got offered an interview from my regional service at Far Northern, and I got an interview offered for me at Save Mart, and so I go in for the interview the next day, and then I do the application online. Then about 2 weeks later, I got hired, and my orientation basically was my first day. So I went in and I got a tour around the store, and then I got straight to work. I do bagging nowadays in the store, and maybe a couple other different things, like maybe collecting carts and all that. And since then, I've been working there for about a year and a half, almost a year and a half actually. And just recently, in about February, I believe, I applied for college for UC Davis. I applied for a program called the SEED program, and it was 4 years of college, and you would get to live on campus, and they would mostly teach you about different job aspects within the world, and it would help to give you more independence, and it would also help to set you on a career path for something that you want to work in, like for instance me being a store manager, and so it would help you set a path for you to work something long term until maybe retirement, for instance. Unfortunately, I didn't get accepted to that, but I believe I'm currently looking into different options as of now, and just to see where I can go, and I'll just see where the road takes me from there. And one thing I want to add on, I think, before I end here is I feel blessed to have a lot of different people involved in my life that have helped me with my disability. I think it was early on in my life, I had a lot of different people, even my teachers, just helped me in my life. I feel like a lot of different people just don't they don't, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't, right? I feel like that doesn't get recognized enough, especially for me. I wanted to just recognize that and just thank all the amazing people in my life that have helped me to get to where I am. And that's about all I have to say.
Well, you're,
Hope it wasn't too long of an explanation.
no, but you made your parents cry.
Graham, do you remember when you and I met? You were in kindergarten.
You're from, really?
Miss Robinson.
I thought you were from Marsh. I
No.
thought you were.
No. In fact, I think I took you out to the fairgrounds to do the cars
Oh.
when we went and did go-karts.
You
were
I've
not-
been to the fair before recently, but I barely really remember anything from when I was in preschool or elementary.
Well, when we went
But,
when we went go-kart riding, you still fit in the go-karts. I don't think
Really?
you would anymore.
Most of my memories that I just explained about are from when I was in junior high and PV. But that's, yeah.
Graham, you know how many people don't succeed in their first, their second, or their third job option?
I could assume a lot of people, but
A parade.
of like what? Just a whole couple 10,000 people. I'm just assuming.
But the fact that you're still looking
you.
ahead and planning and taking steps, that's what matters.
Thank you.
Way to go.
You had a question?
I just want to say you're really a good public speaker, very articulate, and it's a real pleasure to
Thank
hear you, tell your story and give a voice kind of to this whole program.
My heart was racing just sitting down.
Yeah.
I keep thinking, how am I going to feel when I stand up here and tell everybody this?
I think that as a speaker today, I think you're representing a lot of kids.
Thank you.
Who would like to say some version of what you said so well.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I'm coming full circle in a sense.
Yeah.
They helped you, and now you're helping them by helping showcase and explain the value of the program. So great job, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. I'd just like to finish by saying that we recently had an LCAP Students with Disabilities Parent Night. We were really very happy with our attendance, and we continue to value parent input. Parent input is very important in the development of our programs and allocation of resources, so that's something that we're going to continue to promote as well.
I had a real personal member of my family that attended and was just thrilled to death. So,
Good. Glad to hear that. Excellent. Thank you.
I was going to say, before Graham left the podium, just that Dad's listening. He did the work, so he can have, the recognition for the teachers and you guys and everything, but he's really the one that did the work, so. I wanted to just plug that in there, and that we started at Marsh at the same time, it sounds like. I started in 2013 also. So anyway, thanks for sharing and bringing him here to share his story, since he's over there, being the cool kid. Yeah.
A lot of work.
Yeah. Very inspiring.
Like the Skittles when he was little. Do you guys, any questions? I know you guys have been asking questions all along. Thank you so much for giving us this time to share.
I feel like one of my questions has already been addressed a little bit, and I was able to kind of get it out there a little bit. And this is just an open-ended question. And I think that it would be great to continue to focus on the big question, which is, where do we have room to grow? And I know that information is coming from the LCAP meetings, and it's coming from individuals who are coming to speak, from our educators. But I would, I guess, just want to keep that communication open to help us prioritize where we should be focusing our growth on. Because there's always going to be budget constraints, and we can't have that be our excuse for inaction.
So that's my question. Where do we have room to grow? And it's open. You can answer it now. If you have an answer, we can talk about it some other time. We can, figure out what we want our next steps to be to start to.
As an educator myself, I just feel very blessed by Chico Unified by making this a priority and allowing us to move forward to where we have gone. We have learned a lot from our LCAPs. Last year, our LCAP for students with disabilities gave us so much information to move forward. And this year, it was an even larger group that is going to give us, we haven't gotten all the notes, but being there, we heard absolutely that behaviors is a big piece of moving into our inclusion, having PDs for our teachers, social emotional, having counselors readily available both at the school sites, but also, which you guys are supporting and funding for that. And then because many of our students that have disabilities don't need ERMS, which is a more intensive counseling. They just need a basic counseling on campus. So those are things that we heard at the LCAP this year, and we will be receiving the rest of that. We listen to our teachers, we listen to our students, so there's many different areas. So we are going to be meeting, we meet weekly and come up with plans on how to make sure inclusion is a priority for our students so that we can have more grants in our life coming out of Chico Unified. And co-teaching, our training, we, COVID kind of shut everything down, but we have co-teaching coming back next year. So our trainers coming back into the district from West Ed.
All right, good. Eileen?
Yeah. One of the things Mr. Tennis mentioned about Graham's presentation was how his representation of what he went through is so helpful for others. And I know, as I said, I've known Graham since he was kindergarten because I had a kiddo that was the same age. And even though mine wouldn't come to the meeting,
It will happen.
But we did share some conversation on this topic of what went right, what didn't go right. And some of what Graham talked about in the way of how much progress he made as soon as he became more mainstreamed and felt more inclusive was the exact same thing that my kiddo said, was that it should have happened sooner. In the elementary level, it didn't happen until Bidwell. And once it did, and I remember this too, she was mainstreamed the first semester into 3 classes, and immediately we could see it was exactly what needed to happen. And so she was mainstreamed with the aid assistant into the other classes, and it just made a tremendous difference in growth. One of the things she used to say was that coming out of the self-contained special ed into the mainstream classes was the other kids showed me what the behavior should be like. And being in the mainstream classes, it was like you look around and go, oh, so this is what I'm supposed to do. And it was a big aha moment. And so I really do, applaud that work and just anything to support mainstream.
Thank you for sharing that. Graham was still here, but that is one thing that I was gonna not get a nod from him. But as we were talking to him about his journey through Chico Unified, he stopped on that and he goes, that's when I became independent. And it was just like a aha for him. And so that's when he felt it. And he didn't want to be, he used the word limited. I don't want to be limited. So anyway, yes, good.
I need to apologize. Is Jessica Hunt still here? Oh, Jessica, I know, but I just got so wrapped up in the presentation. I should have let you, as a speaker, go much earlier.
No, I wanted to speak after the presentation.
Oh, after, okay. Oh, well, then I'm fine.
In closing, I just want to add that the district as a whole, and I mentioned this at the LCAP, I'm just very proud of all of our administration, from the school sites to my team here, because they have embraced this idea of multi-tiered systems of supports, of universal design learning, of including all students where appropriate. This is not an easy journey, and we had discussion about elementary and doing more of an elementary. Students with disability supports, needs, and learning, they have different learning they need to do in the beginning. They need to learn how to be a student. They need to learn behaviors. They need to learn how to be part of a big group that actually sometimes drives them crazy. And so it has to be very methodical in how you do this. And junior high is where you see that growth. Typical students and students with disabilities, there's something that happens in that 5th grade to 7th grade year where this maturity comes that you can do a lot more. But the basis is set in some of the things that our special ed teachers do to teach students how to be around other students, how to be in classes, and how to be teachers. So it's not an easy journey, and the decisions we make are always a challenge of making the right decisions at the right time for every child. So I want to applaud everyone that presented tonight, my team, and what they did to share with you what goes on in special ed.
Oh, yeah. All right, thank you. Okay, Jessica.
So, as you know, I have twin boys that are in the special ed program at PV. They also started at Innovative. Well, Gina Payton was their first teacher. So it was an incredibly amazing program for the boys. I'd like to point out in the data where everything has grown, where we saw significant growth in things, you have to remember that's when these kids were going half-time and had half the amount of students in their classrooms. Again, that smaller classroom, my boys saw tremendous growth, 3 reading levels in that time. We are now in our first year of high school. We've lost 2 reading levels. We are now in the larger class. So we need to look at that. I get it, we're impacted. And we need help. We need aides in those classrooms. I know it's a difficulty getting, and I've said it again, over and over again, I know it's a difficulty getting them into, but why don't we? What are the reasons why it is so difficult to get aides into these classrooms? Is it a budget thing? Are there not enough people applying? We don't have any answers on that. That's what we need to hear are reasons why. Yes, we know, and I know you guys know, that we need aides, but why are we so desperate to get people to fill that position? Are we not offering compatible payment? I don't know. A lot of these programs sound really good to me in theory, but if we don't have the support, I don't think they're going to go a lot of places. We're having a very difficult year with getting things for my boys. We just had an IEP that's been a little bit difficult to navigate. And I see a push to pull things from them very quickly, and then we're back again when we have behaviors coming up. So I just want you guys to remember that this all looks great, but not all of us feel that things are going really good.
Thank you, Jessica.
I'd like to ask a follow-up question of staff in response to her comments. Do you have any sort of thumbnail response to Jessica about, it sounds to me like the primary thrust of what she's saying is she'd like smaller classes or more attention maybe a change up in the ratio or something like that? What's our thought?
So why don't we start with the initial question about staffing, because boy, that has been a challenge, and it was really difficult the last 2 years. And so we made some changes to actually address that, and I'll let Mr. Hanlon talk about. And they've been successful, but like the rest of the country, we are struggling to find employees, not just in special ed, but bus drivers everywhere. But the special ed was an area that was really of concern because we knew our students weren't going to be successful if we did not get the help in there, and we knew our teachers weren't going to be successful if we didn't get the help. So we did go back to the drawing board, and Jim can explain some of that.
Yeah, so we faced a lot of the same issues that businesses are now with getting aides in the classroom. You see help wanted signs all over town. When COVID hit, we stopped hiring because we weren't in school initially. And we have a lot of turnover in our aides naturally. Just as time goes by, aides come in, aides leave. And so when we stopped hiring and then school started up again, we immediately were looking for aides, but people didn't apply. It was very difficult to even get a full interview pool, and we had constant openings. We still have constant openings right now. So we went back to the union, we renegotiated the starting salary and jumped it up four steps. That helped somewhat. We, in the last couple of months, I'd say, we've been able to hire more aides, but we're still short. So it's been a challenge. There just aren't people out there looking for work. Many of our older staff that had been around a long time quit for health reasons, didn't want to be exposed to COVID, that type of thing. So we lost a segment of our workforce that didn't want to take the risk, if you will. So the same challenges that we see in our community and in the nation.
This is kind of a recurring theme through other positions and vacancies that we've got in the district too. I mean, since I got here 2 years ago or whatever, a year and a half ago, bus drivers have been short. I think there was a
Nutrition
plumber.
services,
There was a
bus
plumber that was
drivers,
not available.
health
There was no plumber
Yep.
for a long time. Yeah, it's bad. But thank you for bringing this to our attention, and your point is very well taken.
Dr. Kaiser?
Yes.
One of the things that you mentioned and that you alluded to as well, Member Tennis, was the class size reduction. And I know this is a topic that gets brought up quite often. In negotiations, I learned how much it would cost to just reduce one class by 2 students district-wide, at the different grade levels. Mr. Hanlon, do you have that number at the top of your head?
I do not have it on the top of my head. I know it was a large number because we have a lot of kids in the district, but just reducing, I mean, we're talking in the millions. I mean, it's not a small number. So it has a huge impact on the budget.
It was staggering to just, reduce by a couple of students into the millions.
One more question. What do you think about, or any parent for that matter, we heard about co-teaching. How do you feel about co-teachers versus the teacher and an aide situation? Elaine?
So, my name, Elaine Ward, very passionate about special education. You've received my email regarding co-teach. I'm very in favor of the co-teach program. Just so you know, Sarah and I have worked together since my son was in kindergarten, and we did not have the best working relationship when we first were working together. It literally took a lockdown for us to work past our differences. So to know that we are both on the same page with co-teach, to me, speaks volumes. I've seen the success of the program that Lynette Ford is in overseas at Parkview. It is incredible. I personally know that this was the missing piece for my son that he needed for his education. He's considered in the middle when it comes to autism. That mild mod classroom at his school site disappeared, and he was thrown into gen ed. It was a very, very rough year for him. I was very nervous about what third grade would look like for him, knowing we'd go to a full day. He struggled with the 2 hours, and we can't say it's because of COVID and it's because of, it wasn't that. Him being in that full class, in that gen ed classroom full time was not working for him. Enter Parkview. Did he struggle in the beginning? He absolutely did. But you know what? That child that entered at the beginning of the school year and the child he is now, that student, is completely different. I will never have anything bad to say about the co-teach structure. And prior to Sarah getting up here, I wrote a note after Jacqueline shared the numbers for secondary with co-teach, and I said, why only secondary? Primary creates that foundation which is important to making sure that your student that has extra needs is successful in high school, is successful with anything that they choose to pursue after that high school level. To me, it starts in that primary level. And I know there's budget, and I know there's all these different things and factors that go into it, but it needs to start in the beginning. It needs to start at that foundational level. Start at Innovative, Loma Vista, having teachers like Sarah that are passionate about inclusion, having that co-teach structure, because a big factor in that too was having a para in the classroom with him. Is she just for my son? Absolutely not. She's there when he needs it, and she is there to offer support to all the other students as well.
So I gather a teacher and an aide is less expensive than a co-teaching situation. Would that be accurate? You know, so do you have any feedback on that? You know, compare and contrast the two.
I mean, I don't know numbers. I'm looking into numbers because that's how passionate I am about this. People may disagree with the passion that I have for it, and may feel that sometimes my comments regarding it are inappropriate at certain times, but I know what has worked for my son, and because I know it's worked for my son, I know it will work for students like him. I hope Lynette comes up here, or she's invited to come up here, so she could share from her coming into the classroom to really give you guys a picture of what's happening in those elementary classrooms at Parkview.
Well, I've taken note, you know, that you guys have been here every meeting.
Yes,
and
we have.
and so, I mean,
Lynette.
this seemed like a good meeting to hear, really, to go deep on what you guys think. And so thank you for your comments, and I'm
I mean, I
happy
have
to
a
hear
lot
them.
more, but I feel it's not the appropriate time because I am very fired up about a lot of things that were shared tonight as well. But I think Lynette needs to share. That's just my.
I just want to add one thing. The reason that secondary co-teach costs were added and not elementary, because it takes extra general ed teachers in order to co-teach at secondary. At elementary, we as a team have actually already been planning on how to expand co-teaching at elementary, and some of the steps that we've already taken this year are moving towards that and moving to students. So there's not really any added cost to run co-teaching at elementary, because you don't need to add any general ed teachers, because all students are already on a general ed teacher's roster. What we need to do, and what we're in the process of doing, is getting special ed teachers ready to understand how to do that co-teaching piece. They haven't been trained. So that's why we have brought the training back.
So it's not just training, though. It's also giving them time to co-plan and debrief and all of those things. There is extra time that would need to be built into the schedule. So it's not, I mean, I don't think it's not necessarily fair to say that there wouldn't be a budget difference, because unless we're not planning on affording them that extra time to co-plan and debrief. And
so they have a schedule where they have preps, and so those preps can be coordinated just like they can be at the secondary level. Both general ed and special ed teachers has preps, and to be truly called co-teaching, and our model of co-teaching that we've implemented is co-planning. Looks at the numbers of students that are included in each class, looks at what the training is, and the 6 models of co-teaching.
I would encourage any diverging opinions or perspectives to be brought to the board as well, because there may be some people who don't see it the way that you're seeing it play out.
There are some people that don't want co-teaching, there's some people that don't, but yes, there's a variety of opinions in and everything that's going on.
Right, yeah, I hear you. I have a question for Jim, if I can ask a question of Jim.
Of Jim Hamlin?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
So just to follow up on the we just can't keep AIDS comment. Why have we done an analysis or any kind of follow-up or an exit interview? Do we have data that tells us why we don't retain classroom aides?
It's the same as with some of the other positions we have. They're not full-time, they don't necessarily have benefits, low paying. So people are constantly looking for higher paying positions. They may transition into some within the district, they may take jobs elsewhere. So it's all kinds of different reasons. So with any lower paying position, it's difficult to keep people in those positions long-term. We have aides that have been with us for 20 years. It works out fine for them, but it doesn't work that way for everyone.
So if the model's not working, is there an effort to reframe the model?
It gets to be dollars, and we compete well with other districts. We constantly we do what's called reallocation studies to look at other districts, so we're competitive in those areas. It's not just us; it's districts across the state that are struggling.
I guess my question is are there districts that aren't struggling, and what are they doing?
That would probably be a question for Mr. Cole, David Cole, who runs classified, but he is connected throughout the state on many committees. He does reallocation studies within our district all the time and makes those comparisons. I'd be talking off the top of my head, quite honestly, in classified, and he would be better. We can certainly relay that information to you.
And I can tell you from the meetings that I go to across the state and even with superintendents from other states, it is an issue. I mean, I haven't heard anybody say, we have the solution, we know how to keep all of our classified positions filled. As Jim mentioned, there's issues with the number of hours, and so we have had discussions about how do we get people in certain positions that we really know we need to the 7-8 hours, even though we don't have students here that entire time. How do we increase the hours so that then they are getting the benefits for that? So it's conversations that are happening not just in Chico Unified, but around the state and frankly around the nation.
Yeah,
And it's not just classified, it's teachers as well. There's a huge shortage of educators, and I mean, you can take it even further. There's a shortage of workers.
Well, and I think that we definitely are seeing this huge shift in the educational paradigm anyway, and everybody seems to be behind it, behind the shift, you know, and trying to play catch up and trying to figure out creatively how do we solve this problem. But what definitely will need to be prioritized, and I know that we're just kind of shooting out to the universe at this point, is the individuals who are directly interacting with our students and responsible for our student growth every single day. And so if we can focus there, get creative with these jobs to retain these folks, it's gonna look different than it's looked in the past. Clearly, what everybody's been doing, the traditional instructional model isn't working if we can't keep these positions filled. It's really an employees market right now. People are shopping for jobs all over the place. They want remote work. They want to have flexibility. That's a really big thing to have to fight against. So some creative things are going to have to happen. We can't just shrug our shoulders and say, well, we can't get enough aides, right? So that old way of thinking's got to go, is going to have to go. And it's not just going to be us, obviously. But just, I guess,
we are
just
open to
a warning.
suggestions that we then take to the negotiations table. So if you have ideas, bring them on. We're happy to listen to ideas and see what we can make work.
I feel like you guys are doing your best, and I think you're doing a great job.
Yeah, my comments are not directed at you. I'm saying this is like the reality we're all living and having to look forward to is retooling the way that we see the way that our system works, and it's kind of scary and uncomfortable.
Well, I believe that we have heard some really dynamic presentations on what people are doing, attempting to doing, and some look forward to what we would do next year, and, you know, areas of investigation potentially. And I really compliment not just the teachers, but the parents who also came to, speak. So at this point, we should move.
Dr. Kaiser, I just want to, did you want to speak? I mean, I don't want to, if you're running a.
If you guys have any questions, I've been doing co-teaching at Parkview for 7 years. So I started as a full inclusion specialist like Sarah, and they called us, all of us full inclusion specialists together to see if somebody wanted to volunteer for a co-teaching program, and I volunteered. So started the program 7 years ago, and still at Parkview. And most of our co-teaching is K-2. I was told this year that I'm going to extend it to TK-5, but mostly the 4th and 5th being an inclusion position. So I have 5 pairs that work with me, and they are all absolutely amazing. We work very, very well together, and I have a core team of teachers that I work together, and they volunteer to be on the co-teaching team. A lot of work, a lot of extra time, a lot of extra preparation. Before COVID and all this craziness hit in the educational world, we set in some prep time. We don't have prep periods, but we, like our computer teacher would come in and teach a class, and then that would allow the teacher and I to meet and talk about lots of curriculum, lots of assessment, where the kids are, where they're going. So right now, with time constraints and staff constraints, we meet at lunches, we meet after school, we meet before school. So we are so passionate about this program that we find time to make it work for all students.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
That's amazing. And I just have to put a plug in that we can't count on passion to carry our teachers through without burning out. And you guys need more support.
So all my kids are also mod to severe disabilities. So in all age ranges there at Parkview. So huge kudos to general education teachers for spending the time and the effort to meet with me, and we really do a lot of the universal design. We do, the greatest thing about the program is not only do we meet the needs of students who have IEPs, we meet the needs of students that just need a little more than just the general ed teachers can give them in a class of 25 to 28.
Yeah.
So we run lots of small groups, and we are meeting the needs of, I probably serve about 90 kids a week, a day. Not only my special ed kids, but we incorporate all those kids into small groups. And my paras run reading groups, my paras run math groups. It's a crazy schedule, and I would invite all of you to come and visit. We haven't had a lot of people to come and visit our program.
I have a question now.
Yeah. I could go on forever. I was not prepared.
No. You're great. So, because it sounds to me like people are giving up their lunch, or they're giving up their after-school time that, and I say giving up loosely because I know that it's something that you do because you know it's what's best for kids.
Correct.
That's important. But I want to know if you have ever envisioned, and you don't have to answer this now, if you've been able to envision a way that the program could work just as well or better, while also allowing the teachers involved in the program to not give up all that time and to actually have time built into their instructional time to do those extra things that aren't just.
And we've had that in the past, the last couple, before 2 years prior. We get sometimes a whole day sub, and then they go from teacher to teacher whom I work with, and then I meet with those teachers. So our school principal, Mrs. Cifuentes, has allowed to get us like a sub once a month, a roving sub. That works really well. The computer teacher now, we've hired a new computer person, so they can come in and teach a lesson, and then I can meet with a general ed teacher and with my pair in that class to talk about curriculum and things like that. So I see that it's coming back. I push every day. I'm in her office constantly. I'm talking to these people constantly about we need more, we need more, we need more. We need to do what's best for kids. And I bug them a whole lot. They call me, I know how to advocate for myself, but really it's not advocating for myself, it's advocating for our students.
Mm-hmm.
And not only my students, for all students.
Mm-hmm.
Our kids are behind, they need help. So my program actually helps all those other students also to not my program, our program. Yeah, but it's coming back. We're being we're getting that creativity is coming back of giving us more time to be able to prep, and hopefully by next year that will be in place.
Yeah. As a Parkview parent,
Yeah,
I want to thank you. I want to thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
There, yeah, and your team spirit really comes through, and I appreciate that too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. So we're going to move to, does a board member have a request to agendize an item?
Yes.
Okay, Tom?
There it is. I spoke a little bit about what it would look like to the K-1 level. I would like to agendize a deeper discussion about what that's going to look like, what kind of support it's going to entail, and what a timeline might be for moving something like that along. That seemed like a reasonable motion.
I'll second it.
You want to repeat?
Sure.
Inclusion at the K? you mean
K-1.
K-1, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
At the risk of sounding ignorant, I'm going to ask you a question. What would that look like that's different from what we have, what we're doing?
Some of the speakers spoke earlier about extending programs like those that are innovative, where we have preschool K-1 students who are taught in a small group setting directly with their general ed peers, which is not happening on all sites right now.
You're just talking about preschool.
No, sorry, I apologize. I think of innovative and I think preschool. We're talking about kindergarten and first grade, sorry.
Okay, okay. So we don't, obviously, yeah, we don't do that. Is that correct? Because I just.
Do you want to
I'm
come
not a miss that.
clarify? No, it's okay. You get.
We do, so Sarah will come back up, but we do have some inclusion programs already, and it's already being expanded next year. We already have, there's a TK blended program that a very specialized credentialed teachers teaching. Next year, we're going to have 2 TKs that are blended programs. That means half the class is general ed and not half the class, but a percentage of the class is Mosvere. And then it's going to be 2 general ed teachers and a special ed team co-teaching at that TK level. And that's our beginning to kind of expand this program.
Is that at just one school site?
At Marigold.
At Marigold.
Loma.
So Sarah, can I ask you a question for a moment? Yeah. Thanks. Earlier you were advocating for some program changes. Can you kind of elucidate exactly what those are?
Yes, so what I was proposing was an innovative-like model in the K-1 setting and targeting maybe 1 or 2 schools and doing the kindergarten and first grade. So it would be an all-inclusive model that is honestly very, very similar to the one at Parkview. Because unfortunately, I know, I'm not sure what's in the works for next year. I don't have that much knowledge yet. But right now, that's not the case. It's really just Parkview, or you hope to be put in a class and you get the inclusion that you get. So I think it would be awesome if we could target just a couple sites and pilot a program like that, and with the hopes of expanding it farther. That was what I was talking about.
So perhaps I misunderstood, Diane. Is that something like what you're talking about?
So that's not K1, that's TK.
Okay. So I think what we're talking about is seeing what it would take to get that going at the K-1 level instead.
Yeah.
Or in addition.
Or in addition.
In
not
addition
instead.
to.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a clear understanding of that. Okay. Any other items that people would like to see agendized? Well, we would if we got a second. I don't know, I'm waiting. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. So, yeah. Anybody have a comment or?
Well, just a clarification so the admin knows what to build for us if we approve this. If we already have plans to begin this, is what you're asking a financial impact or a staffing impact? What can we?
So it sounds like what Dan was talking about was the TK program. So we're talking about extending that up through first grade. So we'd like to know what kind of resources we would need to do that. And we have some very early plans about what such a program might look like if we took the innovative model and started at the K-1 level at some of our elementary sites.
And the financial impact?
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
So my understanding of that, we're talking about TK to first grade.
So it sounds like Diane already has plans for TK in the works. So we're talking
Yes.
about extending those plans up
Yes.
through, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and just so that we're not limited, it would be nice to have a full view of whether it was if we just started in a few schools or what it would mean to expand it to all elementary schools. So that would be, I mean, the hope that a complete presentation would include varying levels of implementation.
So I guess what I'm saying is my goal is to see if we decided we wanted complete inclusion everywhere at each site at the K-1 level, what would we need to do now to start getting there?
All right, everybody clear? Okay. So,
You're clear?
okay, so we'll do a name vote. So Eileen?
Robinson, aye?
Lando, aye.
Kaiser, aye.
Dalby, aye.
Tennis, aye.
Okay. Any other requests to agendize an item? All right, going once, going twice. Okay. So with that, we're going to move into closed session. I do want to very sincerely thank all of you for coming. And you know, mothers, if you're the war mother, that's just how it is, right? Okay, good. Thank you.